What's up, Hokie Nation? And welcome into episode 41 of Talking with Teel, presented by State Farm. Virginia Tech's 2026 Media Day has come and gone. We got everybody on set to break it all down. All that and much more coming up in episode 41 of Talking with Teel, which starts right now. And we record on Monday, August 10th, 2026 from the Tech Solutions Studio in the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. Remember to like, subscribe, and refer this show to a friend. I'm your host, Carter Hill. To my left, joining us in person today is the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer, David Teel. Across the way is our managing editor, Mr. David Cunningham. To his left is our senior staff writer, Andy Bitter. And Nick Brown, our director of media, is producing behind the scenes. Teel football season is here. Welcome back to Blacksburg. Welcome back from vacation.
Glad to be here. Glad to be in the presence of champions.
Yep.
You guys been pub crawling with a trophy. Proud of y'all.
It was quite a time. David was very, very proud of us, and we're all very proud of ourselves too. So we covered it last week on the podcast, but yeah, great time for the Blacksburg Bombers in 2026. Guess what? We are less than 30 days away from football season at Virginia Tech and James Franklin's first football season here in Blacksburg. So Media Day came yesterday. We're going to try and split this up as much as possible. We got Talking with Teel today and then the podcast tomorrow, but there are a lot of different things we can get into, so we'll be able to split it up as much as we possibly can, but we'll start very, very basic. Teel, we'll start with you, then we'll go round table. When you walk into Merriman yesterday and spending the day in Blacksburg, what were your overall takeaways from what you heard from James Franklin, Brent Pry, all the coordinators, and pretty much everybody that's not a true freshman as well?
Well, everybody's in the we're going to shock the world mode, and everybody's upbeat, of course. That's the way these events are. I try to come in with kind of a plan as to what story I want to pursue. You'll notice the Colorado School of Mines t-shirt, Division II football. Mm-hmm. Division II was my angle yesterday with Marcellus Hawkins and Jaquez White. Guys, I think they are essential pieces for the Hokies this year if they are to be successful. Obviously, Hawkins at running back and White at corner. I opened up my little chat with Jaquez yesterday. I said, I'm the only other one in this building who was in Harrisonburg and watched you pick off that pass in the Sun Belt Conference Championship game. And his eyes just brightened up.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, that was a good one. I said, oh, I know, dude.
Yeah, you take more of the feature angle on that. My story yesterday was more about the newsy side of that, in which Jaquez White being healthy-ish. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't still been fully cleared, he said, from that scary knee injury that he had in the spring. That, I mean, he told you it was a torn MCL and a partially torn ACL. And I don't know, we have some doctors on our site that like an MCL can heal on its own, an ACL can't. Like, you need that to be like surgically repaired.
And he did not have surgery.
So you can like strengthen the muscles and stuff around it, but you can't, that actually doesn't heal on its own. So it'll be interesting to see, how that holds up this season. He seems to be in good spirits. The Brent Pry was asked about him. Chris Coleman was the one who's like, you get your Jaquez White back. And Pry's like, whew, thankfully. Like, that tells you how big of a piece of this defense I think he's going to be. And I think he's their top corner. I think he's one of their top defenders along with Kamari Copeland. And, his health is paramount in that secondary. You don't want to start the season with one of your top transfers like that. Probably a good portion of your NIL budget, going down the drain like that with an injury that, is the last thing you want in the spring game. That's totally avoidable. That's the last thing you absolutely can have happen in a spring game.
He told me it felt like 5 knives stabbing into his leg simultaneously.
He thought he was done for the year.
Yes. Completely. And was real emotional about it. Then he wasn't emotional talking about it yesterday. But he said just a lot of strengthening the muscles around the ligaments. And we saw him in drills yesterday. Dude looks like he's ready to play football now.
Yeah. He said he'd kind of shut down for 6 to 8 weeks essentially, and then build the strength back up and everything. So I would trust the medical staff that they have a plan with this and know how it's going to work. And fingers crossed that he holds up during the season.
He's been wearing a sleeve, I think, on his leg. But on the other side of it, I think Hawkins is a guy we've talked a lot about because he missed the spring with an injury, but you brought up an eye-popping stat yesterday that I was like, that's bonkers, especially given he has not necessarily had the best offensive line in front of him.
Yeah, and, I mean, Chris had great advanced stats on him, and I was reading those because I think he wrote about Marcellus from kickoff, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I went a little more conventional. I was just looking at yards per carry, and he averaged 6.34 yards per carry last season. I'm thinking, that's pretty damn good. So I went back in the last 25 years, there is only one Virginia Tech running back with more than 100 carries with a better per carry average than Marcellus Hawkins had last year. And that was Khalil Herbert in 2020 in the COVID year. And oh, by the way, guys, that O-line that Khalil Herbert was running behind was stout.
You said it was like 7.7?
7.7.
The whole year?
Khalil
Good
Herbert.
Lord.
Yeah. Oh, it was ridiculous.
Herbert was insane.
Yes.
He was so good when he was here.
And look who was running behind.
I know.
Darisaw, Tenuta, Hoffman,
Lacetus.
Smith.
True.
Silas Janzi, I think, was a reserve on that line.
I think that's when they had Austin Cannon would work into the lineup occasionally at that point.
I think
they
Doug
had
Nestor.
Doug Nestor and Brian Hudson were freshmen, I believe, who were
and
playing
Hudson,
that
who
year.
would go on to an All-ACC career at
It was a
Louisville, right?
stacked offensive line.
Yes.
You can see how they could run the ball. I think they were like 4th or 5th in the country rushing the ball that year, something like that. So yeah, pretty good comparison if you're talking about Khalil Herbert in the COVID season.
Yeah, and we're going to talk more about offensive line later, Carter, but I'm curious to see what Hawkins can do, assuming he can stay healthy with an improved offensive line. Like, that has been the spot that Brent Pry was never really able to get right in his tenure, offensive line. And if we've seen what Hawkins can do behind an okay line. If it can take a couple steps forward, we could be talking about a guy that's easily 1,000-yard rusher, I think.
Yeah, and I went down another rabbit hole with Hawkins and White.
Yeah.
And figured out that they played against each other in Division II ball. Hawkins at Central Missouri, White at Washburn. They're in the same conference out in the Midwest. Washburn's in Kansas, and it was in 2023. And Hawkins had, I think it was, I don't have the stats right off the top of my head, like 8 carries for $144, touchdown runs of 56 and 49 yards. So I asked each about it yesterday, and Hawkins kind of downplayed it. He goes, "Oh yeah, I remember. We talk about it, and when he signed here, I hit him up, and we texted about it." And then I asked White about it, and he going, "Oh my God, I'll never forget it," because White says there was this 2-play sequence, and on one, he's tackling their quarterback, and then smack talking the quarterback, at which point Hawkins gets in White's face and says, "I got something for you. You do not talk to my quarterback like that." And on the very next snap, they run some outside zone, and White is coming downhill to tackle Hawkins. And he said the next thing he knows, there's just 2 legs flying over his head, and Hawkins has hurdled him on the way to the end zone.
It's all those ramen noodles, of course, right?
That's right. But no, it's a great story. And White was just so humble about it and totally, I mean, I think I said to Andy afterward, I hope he's really good so we can talk to him post game. Because guys, he's a fun interview.
Yeah, White and Copeland are both
Yes.
very good players and very good talkers in that defense. So if they could shuffle those guys into the post-game rotation quite a bit, that'd be appreciated.
You mentioned, obviously, Johnny Garrett is out long-term for Virginia Tech, but you do have Justin Terry and Logan Howland back, and everybody wants to talk about the offensive line, rightfully so. We talked about it on the podcast last week, but particularly with those guys are finally healthy and seem to be back fully ready to go for the season. What did you learn specifically from those 2 guys, talking to them yesterday in the Beamer Barn?
I didn't have a chance to talk to them.
Okay.
I talked to Matt Moore.
Okay. What did you learn from him
And
specifically?
I think, you bring up Howland, and Franklin said this, Matt Moore says this, just experience. He's been on the field. He's been through a lot of battles. You bring up Justin Terry, and they're like, man, the upside of this guy, the athleticism of him. So in asking about those two guys, I sense maybe a little more, I don't want to say excitement over Terry, but maybe just higher ceiling of what he could accomplish if things come together for him. I imagine both are going to play a considerable amount of time this year. I don't know exactly where yet. If that means Terry stays at left tackle and Howland comes in and can play right tackle, and then Cunningham could play right guard. He's played that before. If Howland becomes a left tackle and Terry slides into guard or could move over to, I think both are going to play quite a bit this season. So these are two guys that were not there in the spring. You're trying to put together an offensive line and get some cohesion there. It doesn't help to not have those guys there. So they finally have like a full complement of players in their offensive line room, even losing a guy like Garrett for how long he's going to be out. It's not like last year, where they lost somebody and you're going, well, they got this redshirt freshman that has to play that's not ready. And just going to have to roll with them because there just aren't any other bodies. They have some more options this season.
I talked to both of them.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And they are massive.
The whole line is massive. I mean, a lot of 300-pound guys. Like, it's huge.
Howland is 6'6", and every bit of it. And Terry is 6'5", and every bit of it. They are not fudging on those.
So they're off the bus guys. You put them in the front of the line, like
you want 100%.
The Wyatt Teller spots.
And it was interesting to me. Terry clearly read the memo from James Franklin about we don't talk about injuries.
Jaquez White less so,
and Logan Howland less so, because I asked Terry. I said, "Do you mind me asking what kept you out?" He goes, "You'll have to ask Coach Franklin about that." I said, "Fine." Howland, open book. He's like, he had a shoulder his redshirt freshman year at OU, and then he said this year it was the other shoulder. I said, both surgically repaired? He goes, yep, I am bionic and good to go in both shoulders. And I got the sense, and Andy, I'll be interested if you got the same impression from Matt Moore, that both of them are at left tackle now to determine who's best there. We got to protect Grunkemeier's blind side. Who's the best at left tackle? And then I think whoever doesn't land in that spot, I think very likely is at right tackle.
Yeah, I think possibly my only pause on that would be that Cunningham has been in that right tackle spot for so long. And since the spring, they seem to like him there, even though he doesn't have like a tackle build. You don't look at him and go, oh, that's an offensive tackle. I could definitely see that because he does have a history of playing inside and helping out there. I think Terry could also move inside. I think Moore said that Terry has those kind of abilities and he could move inside if he needs to. But I don't know. I think you bring these guys in for a reason. You bring them in to be your tackle. So that would not surprise me at all. That's the direction they went.
Yeah. There's another common thread with these two guys, and it comes back to Matt Moore. Obviously Justin Terry started at West Virginia under Matt Moore before going to Ohio State, where, by the way, his line coach was
Tyler Bowen. Yeah.
Tyler Bowen. And I guess Chris was talking to Terry a little bit yesterday, and he said, and I didn't, because I'm dumb, and I didn't think to ask Terry about this, but Chris did ask him about Bowen, and he was very effusive in his praise of Bowen. But Terry said the reason he came to Virginia Tech is Matt Moore. He said, when I walked in the room, it was like deja vu. I'm home. This is great. And then when I talked to Howland about why Virginia Tech, he said his O-line coach at Oklahoma and Matt Moore are very good friends. His O-line coach, I think it's Bob Biedenbach, used to coach at West Virginia.
Bill Biedenbach,
my bad. They didn't overlap at West Virginia, but they both have ties to that program. So I asked Howland, I said, so you're leaving Oklahoma, but you're still have a really good relationship with your O-line coach. And he said, oh yeah, and he was helping me out and advising me. Boom. He ends up at Virginia Tech because of the Matt Moore connection.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting as we see a little bit more of camp, and even as that VMI game early in the season, Terry and Howland, like, I think those are two guys who can lift up the entire offensive line. As
Maybe literally too.
Yeah. Well, but as you guys said, you bring these guys in for a reason. And, Terry was in the 2 deep at Ohio State, and Howland was a starter at Oklahoma. Like, these guys are dudes. And I think if the guys, the other guys on the line, Ganem, Altuner, Meadows, Cunningham, if that group can stay healthy, it will be a much stronger group because of the addition of these two guys. Like, they will be much improved. But we didn't really get a sense of that in the spring because they were both injured. So good to see them healthy again because the Hokies need it.
It would be sort of surprising if, with all the struggles that the O-line had last year, if 4 of the 5 starters were guys who were on the roster last year. I know Cunningham and Meadows were hurt.
Sure.
Meadows didn't play all season. But that seems like a lot of continuity from a line that wasn't necessarily great. I mean, they're good at run blocking. They could run the ball, but pass blocking was just a mess. The whole operation, I'm not putting that all on the offensive line. The whole operation was pretty bad. So I think 2 new starters at a minimum seems like it'd be about right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Rightfully so, everybody talks about the quarterback position because it's the quarterback position. Now, if you're a betting man, 99% of the people, which James Franklin is not, by the way, we will get to that later in the podcast. He is not a betting man. Ethan Grunkemeyer is going to be the starting quarterback for Virginia Tech. But the one thing that really I did not think about till Andy brought up the other day is I think the more fascinating thing is who's going to be the backup quarterback with Bryce Baker and Troy Hune. What are your thoughts there about who's going to be the backup quarterback for the Hokies?
I haven't seen enough of, I saw what little practice was open yesterday. You guys saw some things Thursday. I have always presumed, and with no real basis in fact, that just because Baker is older and didn't play at Carolina last year, that he would probably be the guy. And then there's the connection with the staff and O'Brien. He and O'Brien played at the same high school in North Carolina. But listening to you guys, a lot of people raving about Hune.
Yeah, it's tough to say because I think Hune had some real highlights in the spring. I think also got maybe a dose of reality when they went live. I know Franklin said they didn't go live. I heard they did go live at one point. It didn't go as hot. So I think it may perhaps being protective of his players there in that sense. Hune is a true freshman. So he's being introduced to this stuff football-wise. And true freshman to the fact that he wasn't there yesterday, immediate day, because true freshmen were not made available for interviews. And he's seen a lot of this stuff for the first time. But in the past, you'd go, well, Hune would redshirt. And Baker has already redshirted, so he's the guy, but that's not a consideration anymore. So whoever the better option is going to get it. So I think that throws something into the competition that, hey, this is actually something that the guys can be competing here. And I think, one of Hune's first scrimmages in Lane Stadium, the orange jersey on, so you can't touch him, but I think it was like 18 of 20 or something like that, like really accurate, had a very good day. So it's not like he's coming in here and it's just completely overwhelming to him at this level. So I think it'll be something to watch. And you're like, we only saw a limited amount Thursday too.
Okay.
And they weren't even in pads at that point. So how can you, it's like, here's my take on the backup quarterback competition. I couldn't possibly tell you who's ahead in that spot without, somebody on the staff saying it.
Am I remembering correctly? Did he throw 4 touchdown passes?
I think that's what it was. It was a really good day, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And that got hopes up quite a bit, I think.
We'll talk a little bit. You had something, David? Or you're good? We'll talk a little bit more about true freshmen that can contribute a little bit tomorrow. But somebody you wrote about, and I think got a little bit of attention yesterday, is Davian Fat Rat Brown. Seems like he is going to potentially contribute in 2026, potentially maybe even on special teams as well.
I don't know about special teams. Man, I saw him make a catch yesterday. I was like, who that?
I raised your eyebrows a little bit. Yeah.
It's not like they have this just wealth of receivers that have produced, right? I mean, it's Aiden Green and Quayshawn Brown, and then Takai Heath has a little bit, Marlene Jackson has a little bit, but it's not. There's no third guy that you go, that is absolutely the starter. I think it'll be Jackson, based on comments from coaches yesterday. They're like, he's veteran and has some skills that you haven't seen yet because he was injured in the spring. But I think it will be him when the dust settles here. But there's a whole roster of younger guys or guys that have not done a whole lot here that are going to vie for reps there. And that's Keelan Adams, Chance Wiggins, Snook Peterkin, Luke Stewie, Tyseer Denmark. Davian Brown, I think, is in that mix already, is the way they're talking about it. And if it doesn't materialize at receiver right away or the opportunities aren't there, I think return game. Doug Shearer was very upbeat talking about him and saying punt return and kick return as possibilities. He just sort of has, this elusiveness in his game. Yeah, he's just got something to him that, to a man, Franklin, Howell, Shearer, many players that we talked to mentioned him specifically. So when you hear from that many people, you start to believe it.
Yeah, well, I talked to a couple different players yesterday, and I asked Benji Gosnell, and his eyes lit up, and he was like, dude, Fat Rat, man. Like, he's like, Luke Reynolds and I were in a drill the other day, and we saw him hauling 2 deep balls and another catch here, and we looked at each other and we're like, this kid's going to be really good. I think the wide receiver room is kind of an open door, and a guy like him, Luke Stewie's had a lot of praise. Tyseer Denmark, I think it's open for people to step into that role. And Brown was a highly recruited kid from Richmond, but he enrolled over the summer. Like, he was not here in the spring. So this is kind of everybody's first taste of him, and maybe that leaves a little bit more of an impression, even because you've only seen him for a couple weeks.
And the name Fat Rat,
awesome!
Apparently, he was just like a chubby baby, and his dad just called, "Hey, look at that little fat rat."
Yeah,
it stuck.
It just stuck.
So I don't know if he's like proud of that name. I asked Shearer about it. It's like, we called him Fat Rat once. He kind of gave us a look, so we're like, we're gonna call him Davion from now.
Okay,
from now on. So I don't know if the entire team does that, but Fat Rat is the name that is stuck. So sometimes you don't get to choose your nicknames.
I get
just
it
out there.
David, you asked I thought very, very interesting question to James Franklin yesterday about how the new 5-for-5 rule could affect play on special teams, because you don't have to worry about I think you wrote about all your GAs and analysts having to physically count, like, did player A play more than 4 games already? Did player B play in less than 4 games already? There's none of that anymore, which is
SIDs
good.
Or
SIDs, yeah.
Label them on the site.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll be curious to see with the 5-for-5 rule now in place, if you see more playmakers that will play on special teams because you don't have to worry about the red shirt side of things anymore.
Well, I think and I thought Franklin's point was fair, and I had not thought about this point, because you have a different travel roster than what you have for home games.
Yeah, is the ACC is the travel roster limited to 80?
I think it's like 80, something like that. I don't know if there's like a finite number, if they agree to something on it.
I think they do. I think there is a maximum you can take on the road.
Yeah,
and it's less than what you.
You could have all team at home. You could have 105 guys dress out.
Yeah,
so you're talking about a 20, 25 guys that you wouldn't have for road games. And if you try to put 1 or 2 of those guys on a special teams unit and then don't have them on the road,
right, you lose that consistency.
Yeah, it messes up with the continuity. But I think I'll be interested to see, once we get into the season, like, I felt over the last handful of years, you'd always see young guys get chances on special teams early, and they'd only play for a couple games and then redshirt. And then it was always like, in certain spots, rotation. And I wonder now if, because say there's a true freshman that they feel really good about on special teams, he's not quite ready to play. I mean, and even Davion Brown at punt returner, I think, is a unique one, or kick returner. A guy who maybe in a normal year would redshirt, or you would try to use him for a couple games, but there's no redshirting anymore. So it's, hey, we're just going to roll them out and use them consistently. They obviously have to be ready, but I think it opens the door up a little bit if you can find the right guy in the right situation.
I think, talking to Matt Moore about the red shirt rule, he brought up something I hadn't really thought of. It's like, specifically with offensive line, you want to get those guys reps early when they can get them. I presume that everybody will play against VMI. I think they would love for more than just the first team to play against ODU. They haven't had that luxury over the last couple of years. But he's like, with the offensive line, you want to play them early, but there are so many injuries in the offensive line room that you're like, I got to save those games for later in the season in case people are all nicked up. I mean, last year they lost 4 guys in the first month and had to throw some people into action that maybe weren't ready for it at that point. So from now, they're just like, when the guy's ready, we'll put him in. Or you can give them that little taste early in the season, not have to worry about the game. So it's probably a net positive that they finally, I know it's messy right now with all these players trying to get a year back for one thing. But I think once it gets past this year and gets normalized, it'll be good for college football.
Yeah. I imagine they ran into spots a couple times where it's like your best backup is a guy who's played 3 games already.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, what are we going to do?
Right.
We could play him a 4th, but then he's done for the rest of the season.
It's always been ridiculous. Like, even when it was like back in the day where it's like one game.
Yeah.
I remember covering UVA at the time. Like, they brought Chris Gould, the punter, came in for like one game at the end of the season. They're like, our punter was hurt. What do you want us to do? We're going to put this guy out here. Burned a whole year with it. So avoiding those kind of situations or decisions that you have to make against the best interest of the team versus the player and stuff like that. And it takes away this whole, I'm going to play 4 games, then shut it down.
Yeah.
Preserve a year, come back.
5th game disease.
Yeah, it's not going to happen anymore. So it needed to happen. I'm shocked that they managed to make it happen. And of course, it's the NCAA, so there's going to be tripping over themselves trying to actually implement it. But going forward, this will be good.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Tucker Holloway situation a couple years ago where they trying to decide whether or not they're going to return punts with him in that Liberty game? Then they did, burned a red shirt, and obviously
he didn't do anything.
Yeah.
That was his true freshman year.
Yeah. They went 3-8 that year, then didn't play the Virginia game.
It wasn't just that they wanted him to play. He very much wanted to play because his parents had a history with Liberty University. I think they went there or were graduates. I can't remember specifically.
He wanted
to play against his parents' school.
Okay. Yeah.
And then he ended up getting hurt the next year anyway. And redshirted at that point. So it usually works out in the end. But again, that just don't have to make that decision.
Yeah, but that was weird. I remember that in 22. We kept asking Pry. It was like a week or two or 3 in a row where it was like, what are you guys doing with Holloway? Because he returned the punt against Georgia Tech.
It's a discussion. Yeah, well, he had like a 230-yard punt return day against Georgia Tech as a record here.
But he's a true freshman. You don't want to burn the shirt. They ended up doing it, but it all worked out.
Yeah, you go back to Tyrod.
Yeah.
In 2007 and
annual
8,
conversation.
Yes, both of those years. Is he going to redshirt? Should he redshirt? And then you talk about the suboptimal time to burn a kid's red shirt at LSU. It's pouring down rain. You're down multiple scores, and you're pinned at your own goal line. And I think Frank put him in at like the 3-yard line. Welcome
Have at it.
to college football, Tyrod Taylor. It was rough. And on the flip side of 5 for 5, and I got the answers that I expected. There are some guys, some 4th-year seniors on this team who could come back for a 5th year now that the NCAA has ruled this way. Among them, Caleb Spencer, Aiden Green and Jaquez White. And I asked each of them about it yesterday. And of course, I'm in the present. We'll see what happens. And I mean, White was the most direct. I aim to go to the NFL next year.
Yeah, I think Green is probably of that mindset too. Spencer, we'll see. Pry was pretty complimentary of Spencer.
How about that?
And talking about him in that linebacker spot, he's like, he fits it about as well as anybody we've had. He's like, I won't be surprised if at the end of the year we're talking about him as one of the best that we've had in that specific spot in this scheme.
Are you talking about the mic?
No, because Chambers is playing the mic. I think Spencer is at the will.
At the will?
I believe. So,
But Pride told me he's the best at all 3 positions right now.
Yeah.
And so it's basically like you can master of master of all. I don't.
Well, Spencer made Bruce Feldman just put out his freaks list top 100 freaks, and Kamari Copeland is number 7 on it, as you'd imagine. But Caleb Spencer's in like the 80s on there. He made the list as well, which I wouldn't have thought
I
of.
think Feldman said he ran a 4.240.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have thought of that looking at him, but that's a pretty good honor to be in that group. And he led the team in tackles last year, and I felt like he kind of did that by default because there's so much rotating on the defense. But I mean, you credit him for being around the ball, and making plays, and it will be interesting to see how he fits in the scheme this year.
And Pride just talked about because of his safety background, just how good he is in coverage.
Yeah, like he said. He was talking about he goes very seamlessly from passing off mans. It's like he's got eyes in the back of his head and knows where the routes are coming from.
Oh yeah, he said man zone. It doesn't matter. I mean, it was as effusive praise for a player that I've heard from Pry in a while. I mean, he was all in.
Yeah. And
well, I want Chris Coleman's take on this tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because I sense that he has a thoughts on linebackers on this one.
Well, to preface this, I think Pry said that just about everybody except for Noah Chambers is working at multiple positions.
Yeah, cross-trained, yeah.
And then Chris asked Curtis Jones, and Curtis Jones said...
It was Wiley, wasn't it?
Or maybe it was Keon Wiley.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm not playing multiple positions.
Like,
Yeah.
I've heard you play multiple positions. Like, you've heard incorrectly. It's like,
So,
okay, there's some mixed signals
We'll
about
get
what's
Chris's
going on.
take tomorrow on
the
that,
thing
yeah.
the thing about Spencer though is this, he came from Miami, and then he's playing safety, and then he's playing Sam, and they move him inside, and like he played inside last year, and he's playing there again. Like, I think the comfortability with that spot is really could really do wonders for him. He's also got a really cool tattoo.
I was going to say, David, we're burying the lead here.
Yeah, he's a Gloucester kid.
Yeah, huh?
And he's got a tattoo of the Coleman Bridge on his leg.
Oh,
that
cool.
Nick had mentioned to me before, but Nick was talking to Caleb Spencer, and then Teel and I walked up, and we were talking to him about it, and he's got nice little Virginia's for Lovers tattoo on, but he's got the Coleman Bridge there, which
cool.
of course is between Yorktown and Gloucester.
Yeah.
So no toll anymore.
I will never. Yeah, that's true. I will never. And reel me back in if we go down too far of a rabbit hole. I will never forget Caleb Spencer's interception against Miami, and then not punching it in the end zone because they faked the field goal. So that is my Caleb Spencer memory here at
That was
Virginia
pretty
Tech.
brutal.
That was
If I
brutal.
remember, Miami's tight end had like a great effort play to run him down.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. Yeah. Yes, that's true. That's true. All right, what was before we really get back into the nitty gritty of it, something that we have not talked about, what was your most interesting interaction that we have not discussed already till yesterday afternoon?
That we haven't discussed? I go back to White. I know we've already talked about it. That was my favorite interaction of the afternoon.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I'm doing a whole story on Ace and Stevens, which
Tank.
Yeah, Tank, as James Franklin knew him because he was Tommy Stevens, who was a quarterback at Penn State's little brother. He was just like the little kid that was running
It's a great
around.
anecdote.
Yeah,
that you got.
Franklin is not good for like quick clips. Like if you want like an injury update or a quick note on somebody, you're not going to get a great sound bite. But if you want like a story behind something, he will like, all right, let me give you these 3 anecdotes in this big long answer that I'm about to give you. So I kind of like Buzz Williams in that sense, where I don't think, you went to a Buzz Williams post game. You're like, I just need a quick quote to throw into the story. And he's talking for like 7 minutes. You're like, come on, man, just give me the quote that I need for this thing. It's not going to be like that. But he went into a long story about Ace and Stevens and how we knew him before he was even a recruitable athlete, and talking about how he's grown into this role and the lunch pail, and Price said he got a little emotional when he got the lunch pail. So that's something I'll be writing this week. Also asked Matt Moore about Benjamin Eziuka on the offensive line, the only true freshman that was in the top 10 guys. I don't want to call it the too deep at this point, because I don't think it's really that finalized at this point. But he was out there with the second team at right guard. And for a true freshman on the offensive line, that's pretty impressive. And this was the quote he had. He's super intelligent. He's calm under pressure, and he has great balance. He doesn't freak out when he gets out there, and that's a big part of it. It's like a calm anger type. He doesn't see red. He sees the movements, those kind of things happening. I thought that was a pretty telling quote about a guy that I think they're pretty high on, and certainly if he's out there, competing for a spot right away, at a position you don't normally see that. So I thought that was an interesting quote.
I thought Pry was interesting talking about Okunlola. What is your impression of Andy of where he might fit? Obviously, there's an injury issue there, but I mean he's got some numbers at the Power 4 level, and his brother is preseason All ACC O lineman at Miami. Could we have brother on brother down there in late November?
Yeah, I think a lot of his right now is tied to health.
Yeah.
And he missed all of last year. I think he
at
missed
Colorado.
Missed the spring, essentially. I don't know if he did stuff during the spring. He was not in the spring game. I know that. Might not have done a whole lot during the spring itself. So I think he's still working his way back from that. I don't know exactly what the injury was. But the way Pride talked about him was like, he's a guy who's a veteran in the room and has production. He has 8 sacks total. I think it was 5 at Colorado. 2 years ago, 3 at Pitt, or maybe I have those numbers flipped. It's 8 total. And, we're talking about Asen Stevens as the top option. He doesn't have a sack in his career.
Yeah.
He had one that got wiped out at Stanford. He brought that up the other day when I talked to him. I think I mentioned, didn't you have something at Stanford? It's like, yeah, I had a sack that didn't count in that game. But you look at the top guys there. Javian Hilson hasn't played. Malachi Williams, not a whole lot of history there. Jason Abbey has barely gotten on the field here a whole lot, just a reserve role type stuff and maybe a start here or there. Asen Stevens, similar situation. Okunlola has played and he has produced before, and I think if they can get him healthy, he can be an interesting option there.
And what was really striking about what Pry mentioned about him is he can recite chapter and verse defensive calls from his time at Pitt.
Right. And this was the quote. His retention is amazing. You can ask him, what did coach teach you 3 years ago at Pitt on this stunt? And he'll spit it right out for you. He's got a great memory. He's got a great football mind.
That's really neat.
A lot to be said for that.
Cortez Harris was the other guy.
Another guy in there
at defensive end, but a lot of guys with not a lot of like stats to show. I think that makes it interesting.
Well, I talked to Sean Spencer. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to play a lot of guys." Bet that there's going to be 7-8 guys are going to rotate. I mean, it's not going to be APR is here and he's getting 15 sacks this season. It's going to be a lot of guys contributing, and if somebody gets more than 5 or 6, I might be surprised just based on what it sounds like will be a rotation at those spots.
Was that the position group you're probably most concerned about? I should say, going into 2026. Question marks about, I should say, maybe.
Question marks with regards to who's going to be the people. I think the way they talk about the defensive end group, I think there is depth there. It's just guys that haven't played a lot. My personal concern is probably greater still on the offensive line because I have to see it first.
Yeah.
Linebackers, because I question, like we just were so effusive talking about Caleb Spencer here. I still wonder if that group has the top end talent.
You still need two other guys.
And even Pry said that they're sort of missing like a guy that they wanted as like a hybrid or something to play a couple spots. And then I think safety spots are a question mark. Quentin Reddish, I think there. Tyson Flowers has the leadership mantle and everything. I don't know. Do we watch him on the field? Don't know if the talent is quite up there with where the leadership side of thing is. And then I wonder who the next people are there. So maybe those are all kind of equal question marks that I have for this team.
Okay. You had something else, David? I didn't mean to cut you off.
I talked with a bunch of the tight ends because I'm going to write something on tight ends this week. And how it seems so rare that Virginia Tech has a team has a tight end room where you've got 4 or 5 guys who have played big time snaps and done well and put up stats. Benji Gosnell, obviously, he was Pry's first commit at Virginia Tech. Harrison St. Germain was a Fuente commit. And then you bring in Jerikas Hairston, who's a guy who rose up from the walk-on ranks. And obviously he had a lot of really big plays last year. And then you bring over Luke Reynolds from Penn State. And I asked him, I thought Benji, but also Luke Reynolds and Harrison St. Germain had really interesting things to say about just kind of the makeup of the room and how everybody brings a little bit different skill set to the room. And you've got Luke Reynolds, who's kind of this freak athlete of sorts, and Jarekus Hairston is kind of this do-it-all guy, and we've seen him used in that role a little bit. Harrison St. Germain is the best blocker of the four, where Benji Gosnell is kind of this vertical threat a little bit, and they all had something different. And in this offense that Ty Howell, he's tight ends coach and the offensive coordinator, and they all kind of smiled because they're like, we know we're getting our piece of the pie.
Ball, yeah.
Like the ball's going to come our way a bit. We still have to earn it and prove it, but like it doesn't matter, which tight end is on the field. We know our group is going to produce, and we play a really important role in kind of just relieving pressure, both from a run game but also a pass game standpoint.
We saw in the spring game.
Yeah.
I think Howell was asked, like, are you going to see the mythical 14 personnel with 4 tight ends at some point? He's like, hold on, let's get the base offense in
I can tell you that Benji Gosnell told me, he said, I wish we could line up in 13 personnel and the whole time and just run our install, play 1 through play 20. And then I mentioned that to Luke Reynolds. He said, can we go to 14 personnel, please?
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, that is a pretty stacked room. I mean, it wasn't too long ago, kind of was, but that military bowl where Benji Gosnell and Harrison St. Germain both caught touchdown passes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. After Daquan Wright had already opted out too.
Yeah. I mean, but they were the first.
They were more shot puts because he couldn't really throw the ball in the rain. Like, I can't grip anything. Let me just chuck it.
I think they were the first tight end duo with touchdown, each one with a touchdown pass and a touchdown catch in a game since Dalton Keene and James Mitchell back against Miami in 2019. So
is that the one where Keene had 3 touchdowns?
Yeah,
down there.
So it's been a long time, I think, since like this is, I don't know. There's a lot of depth there. How do you use it in a tight end heavy offense? Because Philip Montgomery didn't exactly use the tight ends much last year.
Yeah. All right, and with that, let's step aside and hear from our title sponsor, State Farm, here on Talking with Teel. Switching is easy. We do it all the time. We switch on the lights. We switch TV channels. Some of us switch partners while square dancing. Well, that's a stretch. But what's not a stretch is how you can switch and save with State Farm. In fact, a group of State Farm agents that support TechSideline.com can switch you over to State Farm so you can start saving today. These State Farm agents and their team are ready to welcome you to the State Farm neighborhood. Check out Tech Sideline for the agent in your area. It's easy to switch and save. Just give them a call. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. And welcome back to episode 41 of Talking with Teel, presented by State Farm. So we teased this a little bit earlier in the podcast. James Franklin has only gambled once in his life. He lost $20 in Atlantic City, New Jersey. He is never going to do it again. But you asked Teel specifically yesterday about there is a potential for the House settlement to be revised where you get $21.5 million, particularly for roster retention. Then you got an additional $21.5 million for portal and high school recruiting. So you asked James Franklin's opinion. What were his thoughts, and did he really even get into what he actually thought about this situation?
Well, we should preface it by saying that Teel prefaced his question with the price of poker has gone up.
Yes.
James Franklin didn't just bring up his gambling history.
Good point.
Yeah, I tried to phrase it creatively, and he took it literally, and that's fine. And it was whenever somebody tells you, I'm not trying to duck your question, that's exactly what they're doing. And that's exactly what he did. So no, he did not say what his preference would be. And it's not just a possible revision to the House settlement, but the way the Protect College Sports Act, maybe RIP, maybe not, who knows? We'll find out in the next couple of months.
Good luck.
Oh, I know.
That's what I say.
But either way, it could be coming where right now, the rev share cap for 26, 27, the fiscal year we're in now, is $21.3 million. That's your entire for everyone. That's preposterous. Everybody's skyrocketing past that with sidecar NIL and such. The concept in the Congressional Act, and if that fails, they may take it to the House judge, Claudia Wilkin, is you would have $21.5 million for roster retention, as you said, $21.5 for portal and high school recruiting, and $5 million that is earmarked strictly for non-revenue sports. So it's about $48 million total, which to me, and that's not for football, that's for everyone. And to me, it's kind of foolish, because why would you just make it all one lump sum and let the individual schools and programs
decide where it goes?
Yes, because if you have a coaching change, roster, you're not going to need to spend $21.5 million on roster retention, because everybody's hit the portal.
Right, yeah.
And you're going to have to bring in a ton of transfers. You're going to need to go over that cap. Just let the schools decide. I'm all for raising the cap because we're already past it anyway. But this notion of creating this bucket here, bucket here, bucket here just seems to me to be a fool's errand. And more bookkeeping for the accountants.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, what is the story? It's what is a camel? It's a horse designed by a committee. Right. It's like all these people have their input on it, and it's all their own little piece, and it comes out to this weird looking thing in the end. And it's like, this is what happens when you try to put together this act, and everybody's throwing in their little amendments and pieces on it. And like, no, we need this, but we need to satisfy this crowd with this thing. And this is why you have the retention piece. And this is why you have the non-rev sports, or, directly to women's sports on the thing, because you have to satisfy another part of your coalition that's voting for this thing. And it gets tripped up at the end. They file it out, and people are like, here's 10 more amendments to this thing. It's like, did anybody read this thing before you actually put it out there? And the answer obviously is no, because they tried to rush it through in the dark of the night with these votes. And again, they've been out there trying to seek a political answer to this whole thing. And when you do that, you run into political issues that come up, and that's, playing politics. This is the route that the NCAA went. They put all their money in it. They hired a former politician to run the NCAA specifically for these lobbying efforts. And I'll be honest, I don't know if it's going to get there. I mean, it's September in the vote, and that's pretty close to an election. Is anybody going to give the other side a win at that point, right before the election?
And then it would have to go to the House.
Right. And then it has to pass legal muster, too. Yes. Like, it can't just be like, oh, Congress decided this. It's like, well, there's going to be lawsuits. There will be lawsuits.
The Darren Heitners of the world are lining up.
And to be honest, like, I don't I'm not on Heitner's side on a lot of stuff. I think he is opportunistic at times on this stuff, but he's not wrong on some of this. And the fact that the players don't have a voice in this thing. This thing is being put together by people who are trying to cement the old status in a lot of ways of the power structure. And I think there should be some things. I don't think players should be able to transfer to a new school every single year. I find that preposterous. Some of the money being thrown around, sure, there could be limits on that. I'd also like to see there be limits on coaching salaries or administrative salaries. Those things are never capped, but the players' share is capped in this situation. I think they need to have all the parties together trying to come to a solution for this, and right now they're not doing that. So that's why I'm a little skeptical of this legislation.
Yes, and then you had the Florida senator who who added an amendment that the conference realignment cap of 19 teams be and if a Power 4 school was going to move conferences, you would have to be an independent for 5 years. That's what's in the Protect College Sports Act,
which just kills realignment. Like, nobody's going to go independent for 5 years.
Right, and
maybe Florida State might think about it.
Was to waive the 5-year independent thing as long as you moved within
6 months.
6 months, 180 days of the bill becoming law.
I mean, that would almost guarantee that
Florida State,
the death of the ACC, or the
another
current
round,
state.
Another round of
ACC.
that would be another round of realignment, like this season.
Even if those schools didn't have a landing spot at that point, wouldn't they have to go independent for the opportunity in the future to do it? Because 5 years would be prohibitive.
Yeah, but it would cost them a ton, because remember, with the settlement between Florida State, Clemson, and the ACC, or among those three entities, the exit fees from the ACC gradually come down to where in 2030 it becomes somewhat affordable. They are still astronomical right now.
You think that's going to stop Florida State boosters from doing what they want to do?
Florida State boosters can't pay for a football roster right now.
Well,
Or a buyout for a head football coach.
Put
too,
it on the
so-
credit card. I mean, like,
Yeah.
They might have to take out a loan.
Well, maybe so. So is this court ruling in Colorado going to stand, by the way, where all these class of 2022 people throughout college athletics are now going to get a fifth year, in your opinion?
The folks at UVA sure hope so.
Yeah, that's true.
They just brought 2 defensive linemen back into the fold this week in Jacob Holmes and Kazim Moore. And these are 2 guys who each had 3 sacks last season. I mean, they're not stars, but they are pieces. They are bodies. They are experienced. One's a transfer from East Carolina. One's a transfer from Fresno State. These cats have played a lot of football. And clearly UVA had the roster space and maybe some cash around to pay them if indeed the ruling stands. And Carl, I think your question is a good one, because my sense is a lot of these rulings follow public opinion. Like you go back to Charles Bediako, the Alabama basketball player that Nate Oates tried to slide in there because he needed a big late last season or mid-season. And everyone just universally panned this. And a judge in Alabama eventually said, no, we're not doing this. This is a step too far. And I get the sense that public opinion is like, enough is enough. 5 for 5 is great. We don't need to grandfather in, because when does it stop? Now are the 21 guys going to start raising hell? So I wonder if the NCAA has a fighting chance here on appeal to cut this off.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, part of it is just like, can they run out the clock on it?
Yeah.
The players, that is. I mean, if they get a continuance and push it back to December, it's like, okay, you might win, but I've already played the season.
Right,
So
sure. Yeah.
what does it matter at that point? That's what Sorsby was basically going to do before there was enough of an uproar about it. Him getting his case continued until after the season. So, as usual, the legal process is not as quick as people like to think it is. It takes a long time, and the court motions and all sorts of other shenanigans that you can do to delay and delay and delay. And so I think at the end that the players will play this year. That always seems to be the way it goes.
And that's going to be much bigger in basketball.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really muddied things up because it's a little bit weird with football because fall practice has already really started. But in basketball, the offseason was 4 months ago. And there were a lot of players I thought very interestingly, like kind of half paid attention when it's like somebody out of eligibility is like, I'm entering the portal. But there were a handful of smart cats who did that.
With smart agents.
Yes, thinking ahead, going, maybe something comes
Jalen
up.
Bedford did it here. I forgot it. Yes, Jalen Bedford did it
guys who entered the portal going, hey, maybe there will be another year of eligibility coming around. Because now with this ruling, some people have eligibility, but there are some people who can't go anywhere because the portal is not open. So
and they can all play for LSU, which has like 4 players.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
it's a weird gray area.
Will Wade playing chess, right?
That's right.
It's a weird gray area too when you factor in the ghost transfers ruling and what comes into play with that.
Yep.
There are going to be some programs that are going to take chances. There are going to be some programs who do not.
Let me guess what Will Wade will be in that game.
I mean, Charlie Baker and the NCAA have been very clear on, because the judge in Colorado did issue clarification after her original ruling to say this is not to supersede the NCAA's ghost transfer. I mean, you cannot transfer unless you were already in the portal. And the NCAA, once she clarified that, said, okay, if you tried to do this and have someone transfer who was not in the portal, we will then revert to the ghost transfer penalties.
We will find you. and we will fine you.
Fine you, suspend your coach for what is it, half a season, and the fine I believe is 20% of your operating budget. I mean, they're not playing, so they say, and and then to get back to your point, if they tried to levy those penalties, how quick does a lawsuit come?
Oh yeah, immediately.
Yeah,
and I think if anybody's going to test it, it's going to be Will Wade.
And LSU. I mean, what better place?
He's like the Joker. Like, you have nothing to threaten me with here. Like, you've done this before to me. There's nothing you can do that's going to scare me off from doing this.
The first person I saw that committed, I think there was a women's basketball player, Josie Gilvin. She played at Kentucky, and she entered the portal. She had entered the portal in the spring, was out of eligibility. She fits into this ruling, and she committed to Western Kentucky like two or 3 days after that ruling came out. So, but it's very. I think there are probably a lot of players who are sitting around going, man, I should have entered the portal. They didn't think about it. I don't know that like Virginia Tech doesn't necessarily fit into a lot of this, but I think Franklin was asked about it from football, and I don't know that there's really anybody that they would add.
Because if you signed a pro contract, you can't come back, correct? That's part of this whole thing.
Yeah,
Will Wade might say otherwise, but
that's true. That's a good point. That's a good point.
But no, Franklin said he would be open to it, but he was.
But there's not really anybody they would add.
No, and plus,
it's practically at this point, it's really late in the process.
Yeah.
Right?
Are you at 105?
Yeah, and I think the Hokies
over
are
105. The Hokies have to whittle it down, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. So that would complicate.
Yeah, but obviously Virginia is trying to take advantage of it. There are other schools around the country that will, but there's not really like if you look at Virginia Tech men's basketball, Toby Lawal would have been the one guy. Lawal got drafted.
Yeah,
he's not coming back.
Yeah.
Carter, you asked me about Kyla Freelon on the women's side. I don't know. That would be her or Mel Daly would potentially have the opportunity, I think. But then again, do you have the roster space? Do you have the funds? And do they want to come back?
Yeah. We saw just yesterday with Darion Williams.
Yeah.
And that's a hilarious situation.
Right.
Did not work at NC State, going back to Texas Tech.
We should rename this podcast "Talking with Teel," resolving the lawsuits around college athletics. That should be what the podcast is called. But
Featuring Will Wade.
Will Wade. Yeah. So it's fun. Here's to say, college programs around the country, Texas Tech, LSU can figure this stuff out. But if you're adding somebody on the football side, like logistically, how is that even? Like we are 3 weeks away from the season starting. So logistically, how there's still classes, believe it or not, involved in this whole thing. Then you get the lifestyle side of things where you got to move back to Charlottesville. Like it seems like a logistical headache if you're adding somebody to your roster. But if they're a good enough player, I guess you're going to make it work.
I wonder if some have just not left campus.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that's a good point.
Just sticking around and maybe I'll live out my lease and see how this works out here. I think it'd be problematic if you're like a quarterback. Like, isn't Thomas Castellanos said that he's looking at? It's like, okay, well, people sort of make their quarterback plans, and you can only play one quarterback. If you're a defensive lineman and you're going to work into a rotation or just have like a niche role or have played a role in the past, I think that's a little bit easier to integrate into a team. But like a top guy that you were going to count on, I don't know. You kind of make your plans ahead of time in the spring. It'd be tough to alter course at this point and do that.
Plus, do you drop everything for Tommy Castellanos?
Probably not. I don't think I would. But I think there are some other schools out there that might be a little bit more desperate for a quarterback.
He's in the portal, right?
I don't believe so.
No. So that means he's helping out Mike Norvell?
It's either Florida State or bust, I believe, for him.
It's probably bust.
Norvell might need it.
Yeah.
Who's
here's a question about Castellanos.
Ashton Daniels, that's right.
Daniels.
Could Castellanos be like a receiver?
Yeah.
Could be like an Antoine Randall L type. That I mean, he's shifty when he has the ball in his hands.
Braxton Miller.
Oh yeah, Braxton Miller. Yeah, spin move. Yeah, 2015. I still see that clip on Twitter probably once a month. It's actually insane how much it recirculates. But all right, with that being said, we got a podcast coming up tomorrow. But David Teel is still here in person. So what is coming up on the Virginia Pilot and the Daily Press over the next couple of weeks?
Well, I am going to write about Jaquez and Marcellus and their history, and just with Division II football and how important they are to the Hokies. I know I've mentioned this story before, and we're finally getting around to publishing it this weekend, and that's the deep dive profile of Brian White and his family, and talk to all the principals, and the anecdotes are just priceless. I'm telling you guys, Andy and I have talked about this offline, and David as well. This guy is a next generation AD. He gets it. It's about the revenue, and how do you get it, not just on the philanthropic side, but the corporate side as well. I think we've seen it in his hires. He is razor sharp, and he's progressive, and so is his brother.
It's funny. Our group chat. There have been multiple times over the past couple of weeks where it's just, man, hope Brian White's as great of a quote as his brother is, and as outspoken.
Yeah. Danny White is all about collective bargaining, and let's cut to the chase. And Brian, while saying, when we originally talked to him, when he was introduced, saying, yes, congressional help would be nice, he knows and conceded as much that the end game is almost certainly to be some form of collective bargain.
Was there an anecdote or two that stood out from your talking to others about Brian?
I'll give away one. It's my favorite one. I probably shouldn't, but so the White family, Kevin is the dad, and he had just taken the AD job at Tulane, and this Brian is in the second grade, and he's at this Catholic school near campus, and they have these candy bar fundraisers where they give students boxes of candy bars, and you go around and you sell them, and they have a contest, and whichever student sells the most boxes of candy bars wins a prize, whatever it is. And Brian just kept selling box after box. He'd come home from school with his boxes of candy bars, and he'd disappear, and he'd come back empty-handed, and everybody's like, what's he doing? Like, the parents didn't know, and there was this mystery. And one night around the dinner table, the parents finally said, how are you doing this? And Danny, not the eldest brother, but the AD at Tennessee then, who I think is 3 years older, said, well, I know what he's doing because I saw him. He's walking down the street to Tulane to the ATM and waiting for students to withdraw cash so they're flush, and he's selling candy bars, irresistible, college kids, chocolate, flush with cash.
It's a forward thinker right there.
That
is a moneymaker.
Yeah.
That's like the story of all the, like, you see like Girl Scouts set up outside the weed stores. Like that. It's just smart. It's a step ahead.
This is a little before weed stores.
What a great way to close the podcast. Teel, as always, really appreciate your time. Thanks for sticking around in Blacksburg the extra day. Look forward to chatting again soon, and I'm sure this time of year we'll see you back in Blacksburg, Virginia here over the next couple of weeks.
Look forward to it, Carter.
For the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer David Teel, David Cunningham, Andy Bitter, Nick Brown, I'm Carter Hill saying so long from episode 41 of Talking with Teel, presented by State Farm. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you very soon.